Hey, what's going on? I'm not going to do a chapter of the book today. I'm just going to do a basic topic about weathering storms. Big ones, little ones, but what to do when it's going down. Um, Recently, I helped rescue a dog that was in the neighborhood. He was starving. I think he might have been dropped off by some people and abandoned. But either way, he was some people that were renting for a little while were feeding him, and then they left, and he was starving. He had bot flies and some other stuff. And so I took him to the vet, got the bot flies out. The neighborhood contributed to the vet bills, and I tried to get him adopted because I was going home to the United States in July, um, or the end of June. So found a family that was in like San Jose, which is pretty far away, that were interested in him, and I dropped him off there before I left. But this lady had like four cats and not a big space for him. He has a lot of energy, and he's not fully trained. I did a little bit with him, but still, she couldn't handle him and wasn't ready for that type of a commitment. So she was messaging me while I was home, and I was dealing with that stress a little bit. I had to pick him back up when I went back. I was not in my environment, so I wasn't doing my daily routine the same. As I was traveling and visiting in different places, I wasn't on my routine as much as far as the gratitude practice, the positive affirmations, and the deep breathing and things like that, reading the Bible and all that. But so then I got sick also on the last day when I was getting on the plane to come back. I had to get off the plane and go to the emergency room and then fly out the next day. um, and then when I got back, I had to pick up the dog, and then I had him. So I have had a puppy, and with a lot of energy that's not really trained yet. My golden retriever is like 4 or 5 years old, and then a 13-year-old border collie and a cat. So it was a little bit stressful. There was, I had to be proactive and make sure I had a cage for him to stay in when I wasn't there and sleep in, and that the him and the cat were separated. And then I slowly started to introduce them, and that he wasn't too crazy for the senior dog. And then the senior dog having his did further disrupted my peace and my routine and my stuff like that. So I know this is, to some people, this is like stupid, trivial stuff, but it was building up and it was really stressing me out. I'd take him and he'd have to run, so he'd chase my car for like 3 miles, and then we'd get back and he'd slip and he'd go chase the horses. He'd slip me and go chase the horses, and they don't like that. And chasing motorcycles down the road to the workers that are working on a construction workers that are working in the neighborhood, and not listening, chasing the cat, knocking over the cat food, just whatever. So it was frustrating me, and I was getting into like a depression and pretty stressed out. Um, Even though I was doing trying to do my positive affirmations and those things. So it was a little bit of a rough patch, and I had to reframe some of those, continually reframe like a lot of those things instead of just focusing on um, what was going wrong. I had to constantly look back and do the gratitude, do the positive affirmations, understand that this is temporary and that, I can take the steps that I can take to mitigate some of the problems, like getting the cage so he doesn't chew stuff up, and putting him on a leash when I take him outside so that he doesn't run and chase stuff. But still, it's a lot to think about and do, and pretty much a big chunk of my day was being dedicated towards dealing with animals. So and then I didn't, I was losing hope that I'd be able to get him adopted because there's a lot of other dogs up for adoption, and it was very negative thinking. And so I had to continually go back to positive affirmations, repentance and forgiveness, like about having the negative mindset and being in that type of state of mind, and allowing myself to latch onto negative beliefs and negative thoughts, and feed the beast. And it went on for a while. Made my stomach worse. I was having really bad stomach issues still, and not motivated to make videos. And again, feeling like having the thoughts of, oh yeah, you can't even keep it together yourself, having outbursts where my neighbors hear me yelling at the dog. So it's not perfect, and even when you are working on these things, you're still going to go through storms that are going to challenge you. And it's the things that, I don't know, maybe like playing sports. You could be a good hitter and go through a hitting slump, or a good shooter and go through a shooting where you're not shooting well. But you have to know that you're a good shooter and keep shooting. And so I have to know that even though I'm having a storm and it's bad right now, that there's also been times where it's good. And that's where I look back at my mission statement, at my gratitude journal, and redo my positive affirmations, and it brings me somewhat back online. And I can go right back and forth just right after doing the affirmations, or during it, the dog does something and I freak out. And I'm still working on being more internally under control, so that when external things happen, it doesn't, make me as mad, or like take the dog for a walk and then she rolls in cow poop, like, come on. I took you for a walk because I wanted to make sure you got out and exercised before I left. And so I just reframing it into like, well, whatever, it happened. There's no use in me freaking out, getting mad, and allowing, I think sometimes I look to be angry because I'm addicted to like that chemical dump that I get when I get angry. And in a justified anger, that's the best. So I'm working on that, to not even get angry at it, to just, okay, that happened. And if there's something I can do to prevent it, like I said, having the dog on a leash instead of letting it off leash or whatever, then I'll take that action, but not letting that one instance define, like, I have bad luck, I have a shitty, like, turn into a negative belief or confirm a negative belief that I already have. So I kind of look at those things as singular instances, even though a bunch of stuff was stacking up. It's not like that's my life. And in order to do that, I had to, like I said, re-look at some of my gratitude from uh, weeks past and months past, and go through that, remind myself that this is just like a storm that I'm going through, and that, you know, after the storm, there's a rainbow, there's brighter days. But without storms, you don't appreciate those, then you just take that for granted, that every day is a good day. But it's not, and you're going to have storms. And being able to weather those storms is really, I think, the key. It's not to try to have no storms, because if you're trying to get to a point where you have no storms, you're never going to get there. I don't, maybe, I don't know, but I don't think I could get to a point where I don't experience stress. I don't think that's possible for anybody. So learning how to deal with it, cope with it, and move through it, and sit with it without letting it define you or become like a belief or a permanent reality, that this is temporary. And, even when things just continually seem to be one after another going wrong, um, look back at the things, if you keep a gratitude journal, you should look back at those things and remind yourself that good things happen too. All right. I love y'all, and I hope that that helped a little bit. Enjoy your week, and maybe I'll start doing Mental Health Mondays as a regular thing. Of the story, I didn't finish it. The dog, I had him for 6 weeks and I didn't put a post up to have him adopted. I didn't know, I was pretty negative. I just didn't think it was going to work. So I didn't do it because the adoption agency that I tried to have them put up a thing, they didn't want to because there was a lot of dogs for adoption that they already have their full. And so I just kind of lost hope in even getting him adopted and just was and very negative. So I talked to my doctor about it and how it was stressing me out. And she, her secretary, who knows a lot of people in the area, made a post for me with some pictures. And that day, I got 2 calls for people who wanted to adopt the dog. So it took a lot, like 6 weeks, and I was, before I reached out for help, and I just kind of like made this negative assumption that it was never this belief it wasn't going to happen, and so it wouldn't, it didn't. And then as soon as I was a little more positive about it and reached out for help, I was able to overcome the obstacles, and and the dog was adopted within a day. So that's the conclusion of the story.